the go live button.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm playing co-host. I'm Dan Sissick. I'm here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'll let the other panelists, Samantha, Lori, Catherine, and Jason, jump on and introduce themselves, and then we'll get started in the book, Whatever Arises. Love That. I Love Revolution. That Begins With You by Matt Kahn, and we'll be starting with chapter 8. And as always, Catherine, we love it when you read. You do such a great job. If you wouldn't mind doing that for us. So go ahead and introduce yourself, you guys.
Lori Emmons in Denver.
Good morning, it's Samantha in Indiana.
Hey, good morning. It's Jason in Tampa, Florida. Great to be here.
Good morning, it's Catherine Clement. And let me grab my book here and we'll get started. This is going to be a little bit of a longer read today. It's a pretty short chapter, and the last part of this chapter I think is super important for us. Some people aren't aware of, some people don't watch the news, so they aren't aware of ongoings in the world. Of course, we have the horrible situation in the Ukraine going on, and but this week here in the U.S., we had another horrible school shooting, and so our hearts just go out to everyone because it has rocked everyone that has heard about it. And it's a book. This book, Whatever Arises, love that. Sometimes things are much more easier said than done. So I think the ending of this chapter will really help all of us today. The merging of mind and heart. What would it be like if you could go about your life, whether there is turmoil or harmony, without being limited by your experience of others? Instead of apologizing to someone for their experience or being in constant need of rescuing them, it is far more essential to honor your innocence as a way of inspiring relief in every direction. As your mind and heart unite as one, the more you see others beyond their divided unconscious states. This invites patience, acceptance, forgiveness, and compassion to become cornerstones of your encounters, no matter how inflamed anyone seems to be. Whether as the activity of the mind or as reactive patterns in your body, loving what arises gives you full permission to be in a world without being victimized by the characters you see. As your mind and heart merge together, the comings and goings of life tend to lighten up. What used to bring disappointment and make it easy to lose all hope in humanity have become moments to cultivate an even higher vibrational frequency than ever before. As your vibration skyrockets, one inspired, heartfelt choice at a time, your evolving perception of life expands the world around you. No matter where you go, the world has been designed by the universe to remind you when it's time to love your heart. Despite the circumstances at hand, your experience reveals the innocence of a child crying out for the reassurance, support, and attention of a loving parent who could only be found wherever you stand. And then a little subtitle, The Mind and Heart, a Union of Emotional Oneness. As the mind and heart come together in a union of emotional oneness, it informs the universe that you are ready to explore the interconnection of all as the eternal one I am. Often referred to as self-realization, Each glimpse of awakening allows you to experience the joy, sovereignty, and transcendence of viewing life through the eyes of the universe. Perhaps such a universal view is already here. Maybe it's merely waiting for your heart to open so you can witness firsthand a truth that only you are destined to see. While masquerading as the antics of an overstimulated nervous system, your true nature is a seed of consciousness that can often express itself in childlike ways. This is why I refer to it as your true innocent nature. Through each and every response, your childlike nature invites you to cherish the majestic wonder of your heart, just as a parent embraces their own child. As you develop an active connection with your innocence, you engage in a dialogue within the highest levels of unity consciousness. As the mind and heart reunite in holy matrimony, you are able to see how everything that comes your way can be turned into a gift, and with greater receptivity and ease, you can cultivate love in every encounter. However, when the personality gets inflamed, the eternal truth of consciousness fractures to divide emotional oneness into two seemingly separate parts, an overthinking parent-like mind along with a cautious, innocent, vulnerable, childlike heart. Even so, as the overstimulated nervous system unravels, the division between your mind and heart dissolves. This process is much like a parent getting reacquainted with their own vulnerability by watching their child explore life for the very first time. The parent begins living vicariously through the child to re-experience things from a renewed perspective. Simultaneously, the child receives the attention, care, and protection they need to open up and grow to full potential. Both child and parent are aspects of consciousness that come to terms with one another as your heart begins to open. When this occurs, it creates an environment in which you can return to your true nature as the light of divinity in form. From a unified space of heart-centered mastery, you can be, for everyone you encounter, the parent they never knew, the best friend they forgot they had, and a transmission of grace they may not have known was here to be received. Once the truth of life's timeless beauty has been discovered, it flows through you to awaken the consciousness of all who come your way. To unravel the overstimulated nervous system to the point where such a deep recognition can occur, your innocence brings to mind all the things you may have judged about yourself or others, or that you experienced others judging about you. One moment of connection at a time, your childlike heart takes you through your own initiation into unconditional love as the most direct means to awaken the master within you. Loving the one who judges or has been judged by others ensures that your innocence has your absolute trust, no matter what it says or requests. Throughout this process, the recurring theme is reminding your innocence of the support, understanding, and attention you are always here to provide. Over a period of time, your consistent, attentive actions reassure your innocence that you are not going to treat it the same way it was mistreated by characters from the past. As your initiation is completed to earn back the faith and trust of your true innocent nature, you emerge as the wise guardian of your radiant childlike heart. You may not always say yes to its impulsive demands, but you always know each request is not the purpose of each dialogue. Rather, each interaction between parent and child is rooted in love, as the universe celebrates its long-awaited destiny throughout the heart-centered awakening of every being. Subtitle: The Art of Self-Compliment. In the same way you have learned to do for others, you can meet the innocence within you and turn anything it says into the gift of a compliment as well. Perhaps you've had experiences of fear, sadness, or anger, and wondered how to respond in an authentic, complimentary way. While it's natural to respond to fear by focusing on how to get away from it, you may not realize that any attempt to pull away from emotions only sends another message of abandonment to your heart. Maybe when you felt sadness, you've wondered, how do I cure myself of sadness? How do I overcome it? Such questions can leave you feeling quite defeated until you realize that sadness wasn't created to be overcome. To overcome sadness is to push away your innocence until it begins to act more appropriately. Just like fear, moments of sadness cannot be defeated, cured, or overcome. They can only be transformed through your willingness to love. By learning how to support the one who is afraid, sad, or even angry, you heal each layer of conditioning as you change your relationship with the feelings that cannot be controlled or denied. In the process of responding to these emotions through the art of self-compliment, you come face to face with all the layers of conditioning within you. When the childlike heart brings you fear, sadness, and anger, the deepest wisdom within you can be inspired to respond in a complementary fashion as a way of letting your heart know each emotion is safe to feel. Through the power of compliment, you focus your attention on the most redeeming qualities of each feeling. As you learn to respond to difficult emotions by finding the gift in each one, even the most tumultuous, frightening, or painful experience, you discover a more intimate way of living in harmony with the flow of life. For example, when you experience a moment of fear, I invite you to activate the art of self-compliment by repeating the following healing mantra to your heart. It's okay that you're afraid. The fact that you're afraid is letting me know that you wish to avoid a particular experience. I also know that whenever you're afraid, this is a chance for me to ask if you're using fear to get my own attention or as a way of informing me to venture in a different direction. No matter what is revealed, fear is offering me a chance to be clearer in the way the universe guides me while honoring the chance to love you, my innocent heart, as never before. What a gift you've given me. Thank you. When you offer yourself the respect to welcome inner guidance instead of trying to be in charge of guiding your journey forward, the clearest, most direct answers can be realized. Whether fear is trying to tell you not to do in any moment or is simply attempting to get your attention, it can always be met with the gift of unwavering support. Feel what happens when fear is complimented and acknowledged. No matter how intense it seems, even fear is an expression of the divine and not something to be overlooked, ignored, ridiculed, or denied. When sadness arises, it can become an opportunity for love to activate the art of self-compliment by saying to your heart, I welcome your sadness. I wish for you to share with me everything you feel about it, even if it's due to a loss of something that you weren't ready to let go of. No matter how sad you feel, these feelings just show me how meaningful things are to you. When you're sad because of the loss or things that change, it shows me how deeply you appreciate what has been given to you and how much you value the gifts that come your way. I find that quality admirable and courageous. Similarly, when anger erupts, frightening you with the magnitude of your own power, you can breathe slowly and allow love in by saying to your heart, hello, anger. I want you to know that you have a right to be upset. You are free to express in this way. I invite you to be upset for as long as you wish. You are free to point your finger at anyone you please and plead your case. I'm listening to you. I acknowledge and compliment you because you respond so quickly to the actions of another who is not measuring up to your standard of conduct. Even though you're pointing your finger as a way of dealing with feeling disappointed, it just lets me know how high your values are. Underneath the surface, the values that you embody enable you to point out disappointment and injustice in others. This shows me how eager you are to act as my protector, even though I really don't need to be protected. Thank you for always looking out for me. As a result, you tend to get angry when things don't go my way or when others don't measure up to certain levels of expectation. You have the right to be heard, and you will not be punished no matter what you think or say. I want to hear everything you wish to share, including every insult and judgment against those who persecute or judge. No matter how explosive you seem to be, I'm always here to listen, admire, and welcome you as the eternal one I am. Through these examples, you see how natural it can be to openly meet such intense emotions that may have distracted you in the past. By celebrating the vulnerability of your childlike heart, you discover the true purpose of compliments as a way of transforming whatever arises with love, acceptance, and authenticity. From this space, the heart of surrender reaches an exciting point of completion as you ascend into the next level of spiritual growth and energetic expansion.
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, this had some powerful points. I'll open this up to if anything stuck out to anybody or if people are still kind of, going over and putting their thoughts together.
I think I really love how he gives us permission to embrace whatever it is we're feeling. Because there is a tendency to push feelings away, to bury feelings. And especially once you get into this, quote, spiritual realm, where you start kind of judging your own, oh, well, I shouldn't feel that way. I shouldn't act that way. I shouldn't have that thought. That's not a, quote, spiritual thought, blah, 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 because we get into, it's bad enough when we feel the feelings, but then when we get into a judgment situation on top of feeling the feelings, it just really snowballs the whole effect. And Lori, I read your post that you made earlier in the week when this happened, and I know that both you and I were deeply affected by Columbine, and so when something similar happens, it's like any kind of trauma that you've had in the past. When a similar trauma pops up, it hits you hard. And then for those of us that, how do I say this, kind of feel that we're empaths, we feel other people's pain on a very deep level. There were times this week when I was completely unable to do anything except just sit and cry. And it's okay to feel those feelings and to really love yourself through those feelings. And it's really easy to, jump on that snowball of where in the hell is this world going to, because it just seems like so many children are dying right now across the world, not just in this incident, but in war situations. And I think it's super hard when it's kids. It's somehow easier when it's older people and they've had a chance to live their life, and the human mind will never, ever be able to understand or accept things like that. It just won't. we are, and I don't think we're supposed to. Like, I think if you're human and you can watch the misery in this world and not feel it in your heart and be affected by it sometimes, then I think you're far too separated. Because it's really easy to pull back and separate when there's such a rush of pain and anger. So I love that he asks us to embrace our feelings rather than bury them or push them away.
Yeah, I think burying them and pushing them away is what causes a lot of their anger and rage that causes things like that to happen. And somehow, so many of us grew up without that loving parent that is described in the book, and or and everybody's mindset or idea of what a parent's love should be like. And they had your parents have their issues they are dealing with, and they aren't able to meet all of those needs that all of us have. That if it's not there, it creates a wound that sometimes spews pus all over people, and not a good thing. I don't know.
I'm going to jump out because a little bit before we were, live and stuff, I was talking about a little bit of something that happened to me, which is trivial and very trivial in light of what was going on with Uvalde and all that. And I did not really know about it until later in the evening, and it didn't hit me until a little later, but I think it's weird. It may have manifested itself for me in a different way, shape, and form. And I'm now maybe realizing that a little bit is because I had an incident where my refrigerator is now not working and I'm having to get it fixed. But I literally just kind of lost it Thursday when that happened. But I don't know if maybe that was some of the feelings and stuff that was out there and feeling, because I just felt, and I think this just kind of brought it to the forefront for me, and because of some raw feelings I had from something that happened around Mother's Day with extended family members, and the loss of innocent life of somebody who wasn't even the same, was younger than the age of the kids that were massacred just this last week. So I think for me, I tended to maybe process some of this in a different way, but it manifested. But I also, and I told this with my Bible study group, I have to admit, I yelled at God. Any of you who've grown up in the, church or anything, kind of know you kind of beat yourself up when you react that way, and and I was not blaming God. I was not putting it, cursing him or not believing, that ultimately something can't come out of everything that's going on. But if I'm honest, I kind of, let loose a little bit, but in that, I needed to give myself that permission to go ahead and do that, because I think sometimes, like Catherine was saying, we tend to separate or push ourselves, or, because of how we perceive or what we feel like we're supposed to do. But I think that's how things fester and build up. And I know for me that sometimes I just push things down a little bit too, because I'm going to be honest. I've been dealing with a lot over the last year. I do know I have my family. I know my family, that I have here loves me, but I've also felt a slight disconnect because of things that have happened and transpired. So I've, in some ways, feel like I'm the only one I have to lean on and go to, and that immediate close, when you need your family. A couple times I just haven't, and I know they were going through what they were going through, and they were doing what they needed to do, but it really hurt and put a deep, and I think that's some of what also came out of some of this. It just kind of reminded me of, okay, I'm going through this, I can't really go to them because they're dealing with their own thing. I can only go to a couple friends because, I'm sure they're dealing with their stuff. And here I am, I'm kind of coming back and saying, okay, I've got this going on, that going on. And I don't want to dump on other people's lives either. So in all that, I think sometimes we also kind of hold that all in, and we all, feel like, but we also feel like if we do let go and really acknowledge the sadness, the hurt, the anger, the depression, whatever emotion you're dealing with at that time, I think, it just can kind of put you in a space where in some ways you lash out, and because for lack of having appropriate ways or having areas where you feel safe, where you can do that. And so with that, I think that's, what's, and giving yourself that permission to be able to do that. I think that's kind of important.
I really think, oh, go ahead.
Please, after you.
I just wanted to say just something short. We have to teach our children how to deal with their emotions, because this person, this 18-year-old that perpetrated this crime, was bullied, was mentally unstable, obviously, to do such a horrific act. And there were signs, and I think that is the saddest part, is that every time this happens, there are signs, and people need to pay more attention to other people. They need to pay attention to what they're posting. This person had contacted people and told them what he was going to do. When things like that happen, we have to pay attention, and we have to reach out. We have to find a way to help children deal with their emotions so that they don't get to the point where nothing matters, because that's when things like this occur.
I'm going to say this, and do not shoot the messenger, and do not, because I think this is a part of the problem, and we got to help teach those that are actively know and understand or know of these things, that because I think a lot of people have a fear of, one, intervening, two, that there might be retaliation or something that goes against them because they might feel that now this person feels like they've been betrayed, or that, again, now being attacked, bullied, or even in light of knowing that this person's there. And also, I think as a society, we've made it seem like it's wrong to interfere in other people's lives, because I'll be honest, I don't like it when people kind of look at me as, if I'm having a rough day or a bad day, and and then it's like I say something, but I'm in the heat of the moment. And that's the part of it. I think sometimes there is being in the heat of the moment and saying something to do this. And I've learned, and I tell the 2 or 3 people that I really go to when I really, really need to. I tell them, look, I need to talk. I need to get this out of me. If I get it out of me and speak it and get it out and voice it, I'm not sitting there and having it go over and over and over and over in my head. And it helps me to get it out of me. So that way, yes, somebody else knows, but I'm getting it out of me. But I also know that they're listening, and they're, I think part of the reason I got invited to my friend's dinner plans tonight, I think he did it on a whim after my reaction Thursday. Because he's known about everything that's been going on with my car and stuff, and stuff like that. My mom passing and stuff last year, and he's been the one I've been going to when I've been really needing to let loose, and it's made a difference. But he is also actively, like, when he called me last night, he said, "Hey, Monica, what are you doing tomorrow night at 6?" And I said, "Nothing." He said, "Want to come to dinner?" And I go, "Yeah, sure." But it's that simple act, I think, of doing something like that, but also being willing to put yourself out there in those instances where, in this case, and look at it from, that, okay, if you go back to this person's history, yes, he was bullied. Yes, they were this. Yes. And people take the time to really look at that and be able to help express that to whoever is the appropriate place to go to. So that way, maybe the help can be given to that person, whether it's child or adult, because there are adults that do things too. It might help start turning some of this to where it's not such a stigma on both sides, on the side of people who maybe know and should have said something, because there's a stigma there, because it's like the person that knew or heard about it or had knowledge of it, they get stigmatized too, because, oh, well, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you go to, and I think it goes down to a pure, deep level of fear all around, and a fear of everything all around.
Yeah, that's a real good point. And my heart goes out to Dan. You've been going through a really rough time too, and it's amazing how things seem to sort of just kind of spin out of control sometimes, and especially if we are sympathetic, and naturally bring these things, let these things affect us, or that we're super sensitive to them, then it can be even more compounding, it seems. I think it's kind of eye-opening in the book where the author is speaking to both the parent and the child within each of us, and how there is that there's that connection there, but then also can be a disconnection there, and then that there's a connection to our egos, and that there can also be a disconnect there as well, and how emotions can play within it, or play us apart from, push us away and cause disconnects with parts of our natural being, and from our very source, which is good and positive in nature, but then the physical world that we live in, and the energies of our lives can pull us away from what's really important. These lessons that we learn by going through these difficult times, which some believe can be used to contrast the good times and make us appreciate those even more. Those lessons that we are supposed to learn by going through these times when emotions are so raw and so heated, they can be very difficult to learn, because we have to get to the other side of it, and that can seem like a journey that's too far. But I like to believe that the greater spirit, the universe, God Almighty, has instilled the strength within each of us to get through that, and wants us to be able to get through that and learn the lessons. And that it's, even though it's not fair, and that it's not, we may not be deserving to go through this, through the pain that we are, that there is love binding us all if we seek it. And I love what you said, Catherine. Again, another great reading. I really appreciate that. I love what you said, and I totally agree. We really do need to take more proactive actions as a society to help teach everyone, no matter what age. Even, it'd be great if we could teach everyone when we're younger, and we could learn how to deal with these intense emotions at an early age, so we can recognize them and know how to handle them and find help. And because but also, as teenagers and adults, because it's not something that we choose to, it's not something that we choose to really address, since these things are so difficult to deal with. And if you haven't ever felt those intense emotions, you probably can't even fathom ever even having them until you do. And I think that someone may feel like, when they do first feel an intense emotion of wanting to lash out at someone for something, because things have just become so unbearable in their life, they feel that then they're not ready to handle it, because they haven't been taught or trained. And then they may even think that, well, there's something even more wrong with them because they are feeling like that. But I think every single person in this world can feel that way at some point in time. And so I think it is very important, like you said, for us to reach out to those that are going through things, and make things a little easier if we can, such as your friend inviting you to dinner, where you can be around other people, and for us to learn that those types of things can help us, and that we, sure, there's times where we might want to vent, like you said, and that's okay, and we should also forgive ourselves for not feel bad for venting, vocalizing it, but and sometimes we need to have that time alone, but to not stay in that state too long, and to it's okay to seek help, and it's okay to let people know how you feel, and all that, and it's better to let it out verbally than to physically act it out, of course. So where you might hurt yourself or hurt others, and so a very difficult time. So my heart goes out to everyone. Thank you.
I'm going to go again from personal experience. I've learned that finding the people that I trust enough, and you guys are part of this same group, that being able to go to somebody and say, look, I'm just venting, I need this, I need that, that really does make a world of difference. But and with a couple of the people I go to, there's no judgment. That's what's nice. They do not judge. They understand that, I've found so far a process that seems to help and work for me. Still doesn't mean I don't have my moments, and still doesn't mean that things don't get to me. And I have to acknowledge something with Catherine, that I think today, earlier this week, when I did hear a little bit about the Uvalde, I did not I did not open myself up to letting it affect me, because in a way it seems so on top of the incident that I dealt with over Mother's Day. And like I said, I'm not even directly involved with, my nephew and future niece-in-laws, that part of it. I know him, I met him, I, held the little boy that ultimately. So I think for me, it reminded me of that rawness of somebody doing an act out of pure hopelessness and maybe desperation, but also making a decision about somebody else's life that had not yet even lived long enough to be able to make decisions for their own life themselves, and the brutality of that. And so I think that's why now, as we're talking about it, it is affecting me a little bit more. I'm thinking about that, and I'm liking two instances, because in both instances, innocent lives were taken and not allowed to reach their full potential, not allowed to finally have that ultimate say in what goes on in their lives. Yes, they can, at age appropriate, they can make decisions based on their age appropriateness, but being fully cognizant and aware of themselves in that sense, and that they have the power on how they react and live and go about life. That's still hard. That's still hard to look at, and that's still hard to think about. I think for me, that's why I kind of compartmentalized some of that this week. And so in that sense, because that was how I coped. So with that, that's, and I'm glad you did read the whole chapter because, there are, I think you said it perfectly, Catherine, there are those moments when you just cry. And I haven't allowed myself to at least cry for those children because it was still a little too raw. And now I'm feeling it. And it's like, wow.
I don't know that we would know the difference if we didn't have the polarities, the opposites, if we didn't know or have seen the darkness and the wonderful things to know the difference between the two. So what am I trying to say? That you got to have one to balance out the other so that you would know. If you'd never seen the light, you wouldn't know it was dark. If you understand what I'm saying, that it's, if we could teach our children before it all happened, then we wouldn't have the balance. Somehow it's trying to create a utopia that I don't know that can be obtained. It would not be, guess I'm saying I don't know, we don't know the answer.
I'm going to, unless you look like you were going to say something, Samantha, if you were, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, I mean, he talks about trying to look at things that happen in our lives that we don't like or that are unpleasant as a gift. And that's a difficult thing to do, to look at anything that is unpleasant as a gift. And but I do think that's kind of maybe part of what you were trying to allude to, Lori, with the opposites, the polar opposites, is that, would we know the difference if we never experienced anything unpleasant? Would we know what pleasant is, or would we just be in this kind of state of blah all the time? And yet at the same time, it seems insane to think that we need this unpleasantness in the world in order to appreciate the wonderful things. It boggles my mind to think that this whole existence requires all of this insanity in the world in order for us to appreciate the positiveness. And because there's just so much of it all the time, it seems like. And I don't know if it's just because of the internet and the fact that we can see so much more now that's going on in the world than what we used to be able to when the world seemed so much bigger and we couldn't see it all. And there still was a lot of insanity going on, in earlier times in history, but not everybody knew about it. And now we all know about so many things going on everywhere in the world. And it just seems like there's so much more than what there used to be, but I don't think there is. I think we're just more aware of it as individuals across the world. So, but yeah, it just, I just don't know. I just don't understand it most of the time, and I can see how people can feel hopeless and feel like, what is the point to all of this? Because it just seems like it's getting worse and worse. And for our kids to be born into this time where everything is in their face all the time with all of the insanity that's in the world. And I can't even imagine what that's like, because I was, I didn't grow up in this, I didn't grow up in this everything bombarding you all the time world that we live in right now. And so it's hard for me to fully grasp what these kids are going through right now. And yet at the same time, I can also feel sympathy and recognize empathically what they might be experiencing based on all of the information that is bombarding teenagers these days and young people, and so I can see how it can accumulate and explode when the kids think that there's no one there to support me, there's no one that cares about me, everybody hates me, everybody treats me like crap. What's the point of all of this, So I can get how these things can escalate into this, and it frustrates me so much knowing all of these books that are available to us, all of these authors that teach these principles of how to work through your emotions, how to better communicate, how to change your life in any way that you want. And yet none of it is being taught in our public schools. And that just is so frustrating, because it would be so simple to switch over from Casey at the bat to how to win friends and influence people. I mean, how hard would that be, And God loves Shakespeare. I do appreciate everything that he created, but there's so many better books out there that we could be studying that would help these kids recognize what they're capable of rather than tragedy, So, and I don't know how to fix that, I just don't, but I do appreciate what Matt talks about in here of, just these little mantras of what to say to yourself when you're experiencing an emotion. That's another good book, is What to Say to You, Chad Helmstedter's book of what is it called? What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. That's a good one. There's so many good books out there that we could be teaching our kids. And I am in a special situation in my life right now where three of my grandchildren have, we've all moved in together with my son and daughter-in-law and my three grandchildren. And I have to remind myself when they're getting frustrated and angry and I need to respond differently. And these mantras and these things that they're talking about, that Matt's talking about in here, or even though he's talking about the parent and child within us, is that I have to remember that this is how I need to respond to everybody in every, this is how I need to really be thinking about when people are blasting emotions at me or just in general, instead of me just turning it off or ignoring or whatever, is to respond as if I am the I am aspect of the universe, instead of this human person who is just, emotional. So that's my thoughts for now.
I'm going to jump out because I had another thought, and being the normal me that I normally am, I also play devil's advocate. So because one, I'm going to go to this point. I think society and life have so stigmatized both sides of things, of being, the one that knows something and, should have said something or should have intervened or something. But I also know that sometimes we don't want to get involved ourselves, because then we feel like we're intruding. and that, well, it's, who am I to step in or do something? But also, other spectrum, we stigmatize that there's something wrong if you say, you're having trouble, or if you're, frustrated, or, we stigmatize that side of it too. So everything, for lack of a better way of saying it, is stigmatized to where you don't really know theoretically or what is the best way to respond in anything. And I think part of what some of these books that we've had and stuff have kind of helped in that, help us with a lot of that. Also, I lost my other thought, but I just think that oh, I got it back. Also goes back to a couple of the previous books, where it talks about we sign these contracts, so to speak, before we come down here to be involved and be in the lives that we're in. And that, so, with that aspect, it's in moments like this, that's where I sometimes have problems with what it says, because here we are, these innocent lives, they were cut short, but yet, okay, is that really part of what that plan was? And if that is, how do you deal with that then if you believe or ascribe to that thought or allow that thought to be a possibility? Does that change your outlook, and does that change how you look at it and how you perceive and move forward in your interactions? Because how does that play out in what you've agreed to do before coming here too, even though you might not remember it or have any recollection of it? That's I'm sorry, that's a quandary for me. It's like, how do I, and I guess that's the big question, how do you put all this together to best deal with it, and how to respond with that love, to respond with love? But that's just a couple of the thoughts that came up to me as we were talking about some of this.
Dan, we are all very powerful people, powerful beings. And I think sometimes we can be made to feel weak by others and by circumstances. And then we feel compelled to want to show our power. And that power can come out by, by lashing out or whatever. But the true, we're even true strength and power comes and can be shown by resisting those evil thoughts that one might have in those circumstances. I think that whenever I see someone out that is having a difficult day, and maybe they're being rude and or whatever, at least they're not doing much more terrible things, because we're all capable of that. So realizing that, everyone is not doing this. There's a lot, there's far more people that are not lashing out in hate and evil and ways. And that shows that to me that really the majority of the world are showing their real strength and power by working through these things in a positive way. So just wanted to put that out there.
That's a good reminder, Jason.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's just this, we forget sometimes that there are more people that are not adding to the insanity than there is people causing the insanity. So and it's hard to realize that when you've got the news and you've got social media and everything else just blasting at you all of this craziness that's going on in the world. So yeah, we have to remember. That's a good reminder.
That is. Then two, I feel blessed that I grew up when I did because I did not have the constant bombardment. Yes, I got bullied at times in school, but you know, there were times I fought back. Other times, you know, the one it was a friend of mine's older brother, and I can remember, she was great, she was fine, but her older brother, and I had to kind of consider the source and just kind of, just do my best to not really interact there. But also, I didn't have this constant bombardment, and we had, like nowadays, so many kids, and you see the I'm going to say toddlers, they're phone in hand, they're almost attached at the hip with the phone, and they know how to get in, find the YouTube videos or whatever. I've seen it firsthand with both my great nieces. Yeah. I saw it with my roommate's daughter when he was like, I need to focus, I need to study, when he was studying, and his daughter was like, and so, but the constant bombardment of knowing the minute something happens somewhere, whereas like 30, 40, 50 years ago, we didn't know it that minute. We might find out a few hours later, and way back when I was a kid, we didn't hear about it till maybe a week later or something like that. So in that sense, I don't think that this constant bombardment has helped society. And I think it's hampered us in a way because we're so inundated with so much stuff that we're trying to process and deal with. And that might be another aspect of some of why it seems like there's more lashing out, or, we hear about it more. I agree with you, Samantha. I don't think it's gotten worse. I think it's the same level. I think it's just being brought to our attention more readily and easier. Plus, there's this odd fixation with things that are bad rather than going on and doing more of a fixation on things with good. Yes, recognize the bad, but let's recognize the good just as much, if not more. Overplay that on the, don't diminish the bad and recognize it for what it is, and help people work through it and do what's needed and necessary to help, when that happens, or speak up when you know something, so that way it might help avoid it. But I think if we focused on the good as the overarching, rather having the fascination on, oh, this happened there, or that's there, or this, that bad thing happened. I think that could help foster more love being felt out there than the hurt and the pain being felt out there.
I think things have gotten worse. I'm sorry. When I was a kid, we fought almost every day. We never fought to the death. My granddaughter has a concussion because she was ganged up on by so many girls. She's afraid to go to school. I think that, as a spiritual being, I can look at this situation, that happened in Texas, and this is going to sound horrible, but please hear me out. I can look at the situation. I can look at the people that all the different things that could have gone differently that didn't. And I see, oh God, it even sounds bad when I get ready to say it, but I see the perfection of it. I know that there are people involved in this situation that are going to suffer tremendous guilt because of the decisions they made. And I just have to say that it wasn't just one person that didn't make a decision or made the wrong decision. It was so many. Like, I can see probably 25 different places where something could have gone differently. And because there are so many of those places, I have to recognize that somewhere, somehow, not in a way that a human can understand, perhaps it was planned. I have to even give myself any comfort at all. I have to believe, and I do know that our souls survive. And so I have to believe myself, to give myself any comfort, that these little souls agreed for this to happen. I don't think any child, even the little tiny babies that I used to care for as a nurse, I don't think any of them are taken before their soul is ready. I'm not saying we're ready for them to go, but their soul has, I believe, has contracted before they come in. And there will be a lot of good that comes from this situation because it has hurt people so deeply. And like you said, Samantha, I cannot fathom why such a system would have to be in place to suffer such horrendous loss in order to make people move forward, to make changes that need to be changed. But that seems to be the system that we've been given to work with. And there are, as much tragedy as it brought about, there are heroes, there are, just the lesson that it's teaching all of us about how to deal with emotions and how to, that we need to take action against bullying. I think a lot of us, and I have even said it myself, we say, well, there's always been bullying. Well, there's always been guns, and this has never happened before. Why has it gone to such extremes now? And I think as long as we continue to say, well, it's always been like that, whatever, and we don't actually say, hey, something is fucking wrong here that we need to change. Sorry, but it's just like, for those of us that, were affected by Columbine especially, and then we've seen so many come after like that, we all thought that when Columbine happened, that something would change, and things, there are some things that have, but we have to do more, and we can't just blame people because they're just hurt humans. They're just hurt humans, and we have to learn to. I still say it goes back to teaching people how to deal with emotions, and like you said, Jason, some people have never felt emotion, and it takes sometimes something horrible to happen for somebody to feel something, and I think the less we blame and judge, and the more we recognize that, yes, each and every one of us has the propensity to do something like that if we are really honest with ourselves. Maybe we could never see ourselves doing that in the way that it was done. But we have the propensity for violence and the propensity for losing control. and the propensity for feeling hopeless. We all have that. And we just have to embrace the humanity in each other instead of, just telling people that, oh, well, it's always been that way, so it's just their fault. No, it's our fault as a society. This is a society issue. And unfortunately, it's an American issue. We are the only country that this happens in. Go look at the statistics. I mean, there's been a few mass shootings in some other countries, but they're very, very rare. Even countries that we consider third world countries or, whatever, not as good as we are. This is an American issue, guys. And we need to take action to, even if it's just on a personal level, dealing with our own emotions, that affects the whole world. So thank you for doing this mindset work, because I believe that this is actually the key to helping people out of these things.
Well, we're almost at 8:30, and because we started kind of late, any last thoughts or anything before we kind of wrap up?
I'd just like to say, reach out to your loved ones, reach out to those who you know that you haven't spoken to in a while. Just say hi, tell them, let them know that you were on their mind, they were on your mind. So it doesn't take much just to help someone break free from a bubble that they might have gotten themselves into. I think it's obvious that if we're all affected so much by it, there's lots and lots of people out there that are affected, and if they are secluded from their friends, then just reaching out to let them know that just being touched by the thoughts of someone else. You don't have to console them or anything like that. Just reach out and let them know you thought of them, and you may never, also, we're just the moments of our lives that we have the opportunity to show that we care and that we're there and that we love the people that we're especially our family members and our friends and stuff, that we really do want to let them know that we have those extra special love and feelings for. Don't take those for granted. Really don't. Give them a hug, even if you don't feel like they might not want to. They might not want to ask them. Say, look, I'd really love to hug you, and that'd be okay. It'd be great. If not, that's okay too. Just that they know that, hey, I'm giving you a hug, and I'm giving you a virtual hug, and I'm giving everyone out there a virtual hug because we all need that. Gosh, it's so hard to speak about these things, but it does need to be said. So talk to someone about it, and rejoice in all the love that is out there, and that those that have passed on before us are they're free of all their anxiety, all their fear, all their pain and suffering, and they are in a much better place. And we miss them because they're not where we want them to be here with us, but they are not. We are not alone from them. They are with us still, and just let love conquer everything, guys. It may seem like it's more difficult to love sometimes, but gosh, then doesn't that show how strong, doesn't that show your true strength of a person to let love overwhelm your sadness and overwhelm your fears and your hatred. Let love overwhelm it, because that shows you are truly strong. It's a much weaker person that lets hatred rule their lives. You're a very strong person if you choose love. So you take care, everyone. Have a good weekend. Try to get through this. Have love in your hearts, and take care. I love you all. Take care.
Oh, with that, this has been a Saturday morning mastermind. It was not kind of our usual, but it was very productive, I feel. And I know that, I think I speak for all of us how much I love all you guys, and you guys are awesome. And we are in the book, Whatever Rises, love that. A Love Revolution That Begins With You by Matt Kahn. We'll be starting chapter 9 next week. So with that, see y'all next week for the Saturday morning mastermind.